A very good evening and welcome to this edition of the Fourth Estate, the first Fourth Estate show in the year 2020. My name is Charles Mwango Shampag, and thank you for being with us, and Happy New Year to you all, our viewers. With me in studio to discuss the major events that have dominated the news in this first week of the year 2020, I have from the extreme end, Yusuf Serunkuma. Yusuf, I just learned that you actually Munyoro.
Yeah, I proudly claim that my other name is Kajura.
Kajura?
Yeah.
Kajura or Kajura?
Kajura. And we are among the people who are colonized by Uganda, and we accept to be colonized in Uganda. Yeah.
And you assimilated?
Yeah, I proudly claim that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice to have you on the show, and Happy New Year to you. I have Moses Cheyune. Moses is a reporter based at Parliament for the Daily Monitor. Very nice to have you, Moses.
Right, thank you, and good evening.
I have Agatha Ateire. Agatha is an independent journalist and a lawyer. Very nice to have you, Agatha.
Thank you, Charles.
Gentlemen, one of the biggest stories making, gentlemen and lady, one of the biggest stories making the rounds is President Museveni. By the time we wake up tomorrow, on Monday, he will be on the third day of, is it a 6-day trek, retracing the journey of the National Resistance Army and the National Resistance Movement that brought him to power 34 years ago this month, 34 years ago. But there's been a lot of debate on what this means, why now, what does it mean for Mr. Museveni himself. I want to start with you, Yusuf, on this trek. It started in Wakiso, and he's headed to Virembo in Chibale district.
Where Yusuf comes from?
Hey, yeah, you're coming back to Bunyoro.
Chigumba.
Chigumba. Okay.
It's not Chibale. You know, I think there are two ways of thinking about this work. A is a state makes itself visible through a series of performative practices. So right now, some of these practices include, say, state establishments that are located in different parts of the country, so that every day you're reminded that the state is this. So if we ask you, what is the state? So you can maybe point at the sub-county headquarters, you can point at the police station or the military post. That's how state makes itself visible. Power also has to find out making itself visible. So Museveni is working to make himself visible to the Wananchi. They are dressed in military fatigue. So
he is dressed in military fatigue.
He is dressed in military. And I think some of the workers are dressed in military fatigue.
Yes.
Among other things, to make themselves visible to the everyday person. And this is walking, it's not driving. So you're walking, and it's slower and takes a couple of days. So one of the things they're doing is making themselves visible to the Wananchi that we are still here and we are dressed the way we are dressed because it has a history. All right, so you look at the form of fashion they've chosen, and also the walking itself as a way of making themselves visible to Wananchi. Not that they've been invisible.
What's the significance of that?
It's not that they're invisible, because being incumbent, you're really visible in so many ways. But the walking is sort of special in the sense that you sort of touch base with the everyday people that you zoom past when you're driving. So the significance of that is in part two of my analysis, is that you have to appreciate that 70 thrives on 1986, and 1986 has to be reminded to the Wananchi every single day. So the memory of 1986, which is like really dying down, because you know most of you guys are young, most of you are 1990 borns, so the memory is dying. Part of the infrastructure towards 2021 is to revive the memory, and this is what he's been doing. So you dress up in military fatigue, you follow the same route that you followed when you're walking into Kampala, and the idea is to revive this memory. So those are two ways you can think about this walk. But the bigger point is, because we're headed to an election, there's a bit of a juxtaposition there, or irony, that you know you're reminding us of the war, but you're pursuing a democratic election. All right, so it's really interesting that
if you frame that from the lenses of what Museveni and the people around him have tried to characterize their own struggle, I mean their struggle and the struggle for this country as a revolution. It starts off as a people-supported military struggle, and then with the end aim of making it a democratic transition, what Museveni called the fundamental change in 1986. And so if you arrive here and he's been on the ballot the last 5 times, he's telling you this is actually where we came from, but we never lost focus, and we're still focused on where we're going. But Moses, I want to come to you. the bigger question that people are asking, if you look at the composition of the workers that started and try to retrace it to the people who walked that same route in 1981, between 1981 to 1980, because there was a lot of movement back and forth as the war progressed, between 1981 to 1986. Do they resonate? I think one of the online publications of, I think, NBS TV said among the prominent people walking is Full Figure. And I was like, wait a minute, how does it resonate? How does it link to what Yusuf is talking about in terms of creating those necessary links and reminding the people?
Well, thank you, Charles. You've talked about the group that worked in 1980-81 and the one that is working, the Full Figures. But there's also another group that worked in 1999. The same Galamba to Birembo route, trying to track and bring back memory to life that here is where we passed. Looking at the primary fighters, what were their intentions? And the current workers, what are their intentions? In the very first group, you have people who are giving away their education, who are giving away their families, who are giving away whatever little they had to work, to fight, to die for a revolution. In this revolution, I mean the work that is happening now, you have the likes of Full Figures. What are their intentions? Pick an envelope. They're not picking the fruits of the revolution.
Full Figure wouldn't agree with you. She thinks she's actually furthering the revolution
by picking envelopes?
Strengthening the struggle. The envelopes facilitate the process.
Okay. The Full Figures of 1981, the kind of Full Figures, 1981, we have General Nalweso. Try to compare the two. Someone is giving away her life and time to go and cook for the soldiers, the fighters. Now you have this one who is coming on her knees to say Mzee Sokola and all those other ones. They are simply excited. And why are they excited? Because they are only getting free stuff. Someone in 1981 was risking. This one is apparently enjoying and not enjoying something that is, okay, it is here, it is nice, it's for all of us. But trying to come as, okay, I must be there. I must be seen. Because there is a fight that is a fight for eating. Not advancing anything that is constructive. Unlike the fighters of 1981, unlike the workers of 1999.
Agatha, wouldn't somebody say that we're speculating on the intentions of the strugglers of 1981? But some of them, if you checked, many of the rebel groups, rebel movements that have emerged, especially on the African continent and elsewhere, the Far East and elsewhere, you will find that you might have a huge speculative element. There are few who are driven by the need to actually revolutionize and cause change in their societies. There are those who think it is an opportunity. If I join the struggle and we succeed, I might actually also change my life. And the people have said this of some elements within the National Resistance Army, National Resistance Movement, who have said, you know, you had a bunch of adventurers who thought, if we succeed, I am good. Some of them didn't actually come out of the bush because there was a strict code that said, if you veer off the main objective, then we'll eliminate, you don't belong. But there are those people. So you might, what he's talking about, the Full Figures, there might be people among them who feel like, well, it's important that we retrace this journey together. It's important that we further the existence of the NRM and President Museveni. Well, there are those others who are, like he says, who are thinking, well, it's an opportunity for me to show my presence and claim my envelope when the time is.
How many of those that are walking were in the 1981 to 86 revolution?
I haven't done
because is there any?
Yes, President Museveni was there.
But you know, he talks about the 1999 walk. In that walk, there was General Mugisha, there was Manyamushega, there was Obutime, there was I saw where the soldiers paraded. But now, when
Bejora Mugumes and the
yes,
others.
now when you talk about people like Full Figure, and you will call it speculating, because really, you might find we are wrong about Museveni. First of all, I don't know, I don't understand the relevance of the walk to remember the war. We have been a democratic country since 96, when we started holding regular fair and elections, whatever they say about it. So now you would imagine that now Museveni doesn't want to remind us that we should take arms and go to the bush, but we should work at civic engagement and be elected in power. But when he does that, and Yusuf said something about him thriving on 86, which he says all the time. We went to the bush and fought. You would think that he wants to eliminate that, and now, because he says he's been elected the last 5 times as our leader, and we focus on democracy, on other means of taking power that the constitution observes. But when you see Full Figure, I will agree with Moses Chaine. What does Full Figure celebrate about the bush, about the 1996? Until recently, Full Figure has been a critic of Museveni also. You know that. He meets Museveni, he comes back saying, oh, I have now become a daughter, Moses is my brother. There's a time I was seated and somewhere, and there was TV playing, and she was on Urban TV, Saloon Talk. And he said, Kamba Salide, like, you reach where I have reached. I don't know what happened, I don't know how, but God does things. You see, someone that is so grateful that Museveni so high, even just set the eyes on her. So I think those are people that will walk because, yeah, they want to get something from the president. Did you see a tweet by the comedian Savado? Patrick Dringi? He said, everyone who is crucifying me for going to meet Museveni, this is January. How can you not understand that? And for real.
He was being comical, don't you
think? No. You see, you can say it's comical, but we understand, and we have seen the politics here, that people will go and praise Museveni and kneel for him.
Is a funny way of saying serious things.
No, but even if you can't even have any questions about it, can you?
I hear you. Let me ask another question. How are we covering it as the media? Because we've been watching both on television and on radio, the coverage so far. Are we providing the contextual analysis necessary? Yes,
maybe not. Agatha put a finger on something which she didn't finish. The symbolism of this war coming 2020, the beginning of 2020 as we're moving into the election. There's great symbolism in it, and I won't disagree with both of you on Full Figure. I think Full Figure is right, as Charles claimed. You can say, I am embracing the revolution, and it's perfectly fine. You can embrace it at any one time you want. It's perfectly fine to embrace it at any one time. And I think she's right in doing that. But we need to appreciate the symbolism of this election. The amount of talk we've had in this country about using fire. Colonel Shaban Bataringaya told us that Bantariza, what did he say? You talk about people power, for them they use gun power, all right? And then recently elders were told to shoot on the head, not to break people's legs, but to shoot on the head
and the chest.
And the head and
those
the
are targets,
right? So the talk of power and violence is becoming really more pronounced in these days. What we are being told is you need to flip it and look at it in the context of the forthcoming election. The more things change, the more they remain the same. We're entering this election, determining the next leader. We are being reminded that this is not simply going to be ballots and papers. It's going to be power and fire. You need to appreciate this in this symbols. If you don't look at that, then I think anybody...
And that's my question to you, is that coming out in the analysis that we're providing? Because why I picked on Full Figure is because I was astounded. I was astounded to see a media house present Full Figure as one of the prominent workers. I was thinking, wait a minute, prominent among the workers?
I think they meant famous. Maybe one with a name. Her name is recognizable.
Yes, and I was thinking,
I mean, that's what we're discussing.
Do you know her name, apart from Full Figure? Like when
Well,
you talk
no.
about Bobby Wine, you know it's Robert Chagulanyi.
Well, no, well, the
No,
full
no,
figure
no.
brand
Even then,
has currency.
the day Full Figure went to State House for the first time, everyone was wondering, who is that? I'm telling you, who is that? No one knows Full Figure.
Because here's the thing.
Full Figure
When-
is
when-
famous, as you're calling it now, because she's among the musicians, like Butcherman, like Sasa. That
Exactly.
she was never famous as a musician. She's not a politician. Like, she's famous
Well,
for
I
what?
want to
Came to
disagree a
fame
little bit. Let me share my opinion here, and I want to disagree with you a bit. Full Figure made her name as a supporter of people power, and she presented herself as an artist. So even her fishing to meet the president, to become a new kid of the revolution, to become a daughter, was because she had made a name as an artist who was prominent in the opposition people power. So there she had earned her name in a way. But you're looking for the workers, and both Agatha and Moses raised the important question. The workers of 1999. 1999 is 14 years, about 14, 18, after the Bush War. 18 years. Yeah, 18, I think. The Bush War ends in 1986 in January, and these guys are working in 99 years. So it's about 14 years after the struggle. So you're looking through and saying, who are these workers? And I was checking a curious statistic, a curious fact just the other day. The Tanzanian commander who led one of the groups that invaded Uganda to topple Idi Amin in 1979 was celebrating, Musuguri, General Musuguri was celebrating 100 years. These coincidences, and you're asking yourself, has the revolution come full circle? That the available face of it is only President Museveni, and you can't trace his comrades who were with him in 1981 to 86. Does that
I don't know
say
if
anything?
we want to say he's interested in like reconnecting with his comrades. I think we miss it. I mean, if you have Full Figure as one of the most prominent workers, you have to look in a different direction. We're, like I said a couple of weeks ago, we're in the terrain of the spectacle. What is spectacle will make sense. I'm telling you, President Museveni's campaign towards 2021 will give us so many spectacular things to talk about. We'll spend hours and hours discussing Museveni's spectacle. One of them is his journeys to the bush, rather to the slums of Kampala. The other is the Anti-Corruption Week. Ironic as it is, we had plenty of debate. Now we have another walk. Now between 1999 and now, you'll be asking the question, why now? I can tell you, the entire campaign team of President Museveni is now looking for the things that will keep his name in the public domain, discussing things that seem clownish, but have currents to be discussed because they're being done by the man himself. So along the way, you have character like Full Figure embracing him really awkwardly, and then it becomes a talking point. So we are in the terrain of the spectacle. The idea is, the flip side of it is we're dealing with Museveni's biggest contender now is a man of the spectacle. He also made his career as an entertainer, as an artist. So Museveni is toggling as much as possibly could to also attract a sizable audience where they discuss both idiocy and sense, because art thrives on those two. You discuss idiocy at the same time as you discuss entertainment. So Museveni has to blend in so that he gives us opportunity to discuss as plenty of idiocy as there can possibly be.
Moses, let me come to you on, is the media able to draw these parallels? Because every time you're moving towards an election, President Museveni has been credited or criticized for starting his campaign pretty much earlier than anyone else. He uses his position as the current leader, as an incumbent, to create opportunity for him to be out there. Yusuf talks rightly about the anti-corruption work. However, whatever it's supposed to achieve, you have a discussion about it, leading to, during, and after. This trick from Wakiso to Birembo, you discuss it prior, during, and after. You're keeping President Museveni. He's done these anti-poverty walks. The one season is called a poverty eradication tour of the country. Then another time it is a wealth creation tour. Then another time he changes name. But he's able to do the things that keep him in the media. The question would be, are we able to provide analysis? Now we're being confronted with information that, for example, the People Power movement of Robert Chagulanyi, Sentamu, Bobby Wine, has been blocked from doing their consultations, in spite of them notifying the Electoral Commission and being given the clear, notifying the police, notifying Parliament that they're going to do these consultations. People have been debating, especially on social media, if Kizza Besigye, who was a doctor on this same track, now a member of the opposition, Forum for Democratic Change, and a contender against President Museveni over the last 4 elections, if he was to organize a walk, would he be allowed to walk?
First of all,
and because the question is, is the media able, or have you seen that in our coverage that we're able to bring out these parallels for our audiences?
Let's see what comes out on Monday. The walk started yesterday. I've not been able to see the things being brought up.
You've seen them on TV, because now most of the coverage is on radio and TV.
Yes.
For now, the print is just coming
so
on board.
We can only wait to see. But I would be very interested in reading or watching people trying to show us the revolution that started in 1981, revised in 1999, and reworked again in 2020. Because just like we started, that in 1981, these were people fighting to liberate their country. So they worked out of bravery to liberate or to achieve the end game of the struggle. In 1999, they worked, I could imagine, to consolidate, their achievements.
But you also remember, Moses, that around 1999, people like Kizza Besigye were beginning to question whether the revolution was supposed to be a permanent one or a transition arrangement of movement. Yes.
So in 1999, someone works to show us that I'm trying to consolidate what we fought for. It is here, and we are still giving you more, and we have potential to give you more. Now, 2020, what are they showing us? That the same revolutionary leader is still potent enough. But again, looking at the timelines, that in 1999, Dr. Kizza Besigye, with a prominent name, this time I should use prominent, within the force, within the struggle, and a new political player was emerging ahead of 2001 elections. Today, the work is coming just next to 2019, It's 2020, but we are more or less coming up from 2019.
Yes.
It's 1 year to the next poll. Like Yusuf was saying, isn't the revolutionary leader trying to tell us that you guys, whatever you do, the revolution is here and it is here to stay. Whoever wants to, whether do consultations or work for politics, you will not do anything. I am in charge.
Agatha, has the revolution come full circle? What do you say?
You first ask if we are able to contextualize or capture these, and I think we do. Most times we do, and we are accused of speculation. And because at the end of the day, you are writing what you think, and you do that by giving the readers and our audiences what is happening and what has happened before. He started by asking about President Museveni always having an edge towards an election, and asks if other people can do that. How? We cannot even ask that question. You have the Public Order Management Act that has made sure the only person that even campaigns or holds any assembly in this country is President Museveni. When he was working for corruption, they stopped Besigye. Dr. Besigye is as much a Ugandan as everyone else that was at that walk. They stopped Dr. Besigye from working. When he's moving around and doing wealth creation and kicking out poverty, the other presidential candidates are being arrested. Dr. Besigye has been arrested many times. Even Amama Mbabazi, who was seen as not a big threat, I could say, was his consultations was the first in Mbale. He was stopped more than once, more than twice. So I think the president, and this walk was referred to as the Africa Kwetu, and they said they referred to as Africa Kwetu because it's targeting the young, the Bazukuru. They want to remind the old and sensitize the young. And these two gentlemen already talked about Museveni's biggest challenger now. I don't know if by 1999 when he walked, Besigye had already written that dossier, because it's early in 99. But it could be that, yeah, he's always trying to like capitalize on his incumbency and keep an edge over his...
Okay, as we move towards taking the break, you see, the 1996 campaign was structured largely on scare of going back to pre-1986, the Bush War. So the media team that put the advertising together for that campaign had this split face of Semo Gerere and Milton Obote, had half pages or full pages of skulls in Luero as a scare tactic. 1999, you're beginning to have the revolution itself get challenges. People like Serwanga Luanga, people like Kiza Besigye, the Winnie Byanyumas and others are beginning to raise questions about the state of the revolution, because it had been around then 14 years. And you have an election coming up in 2001,
yeah.
the first major challenge, which was supposed to be Museveni's last term in power. And you're beginning to think about, he's thinking ahead of his opponents.
Oh, you mean which he had said was his last term?
Yes, which he had, no, which he had indicated was his last term. Then it was
Because
put,
when he says which he was supposed to be, we start thinking, okay.
Yeah, it's,
yes.
It was
Now,
overstayed.
so if you look at those episodes, the link, like you said, Yusuf, I think I agree with you, between that struggle 1986 and today is the anchor on which Museveni has based his politics over the years. What advantage it gives him over his opponents is obvious. But to tell people, this is where we came from, so don't forget.
That we can go back. Is that
No, he says this is where we came from, to lay that historical climb. He has said he came through a furnace. So he needs to remind you about the furnace. Maybe the other thing that we haven't talked about is, yes, to show that he's still potent.
Yeah.
To do this work, 75 years old this year, in September. He'll be 75 years old this year. Or, yes, September he'll be.
Not 80.
No, 75 years old.
officially?
No, the president will be 75 years old this year, in September. Is to make a big statement. He's significantly cut his weight to make him more flexible. And people who know him is every time...
We are told, right?
No,
Please
every
add that.
time he goes to...
We are told.
They do those NRM retreats in Chankwanzi. They do that trek from Chankwanzi to the Ngoma farm. And people say he's quite agile in his movement. And maybe those are things that statements of transformation. I'm afraid, gentlemen and lady.
In 1981 walk, there were no breaks. Like,
let's take a commercial break and pick this up. Let's pick this up.
This is ridiculous.
Let's pick this up in a moment. We'll be right back. You're still watching the Fourth Estate, and we started that discussion tomorrow when the walk, the trek, enters into its third day. President Museveni is doing the 400-kilometer trek from Wakiso to Birembo in Kibale district, retracing the steps that were taken by the by his then National Resistance Army movement, an army to liberate the country. There's been debate about that. But just as we move towards ending this, if you read, some of the people have disagreed with him and were asking who are the comrades he had then that are still part of the revolution. Of course, they have been replaced. Some of them have been replaced by other people. You read Kazora's Betrayed by My Leader. You read the late Sam Kalega Njoba's account of his contribution to the Bush struggle. You read the two versions of Sowing the Mustard Seed, and people who are in the first version of the Mustard Seed and their contribution and the version that is in the the second edition of Sowing the Mustard Seed, or you read
How I Saw It. How I Saw It.
How I Saw
Pecos
It
Kutesa.
by Pecos Kutesa. There is another one by Matai Chaligonza. I don't think I remember well. You look at The Combatants of William Pike. You look at
The Revolution by Kalinaki.
yes, The Unfinished Revolution by Daniel Kalinaki. You look at The Correct Line by Dr. Oliver Kobsinje, which is actually The Correct Line is a bit of an account you'd say, because Oliver Kobsinje is a sister to Dr. Kiza Besigye, and Kalinaki also focuses his book on Kiza Besigye. And you're asking yourself, where does the revolution fit into the events that we are seeing now and we're covering of this trek? So each one of you will have a go. I'll start with you and then end with Yusuf.
I already gave my views about the trek. I think the relevance of the trek for me contradicts what President Museveni has been saying, that he's elected by the people, and the people who want to be presidents should also be elected. Because for me the trek seems that he's still, you know, we have studied in law about the revolution, that if you go and you want to oust a government and you don't succeed, you are a rebel.
Yes.
But if you succeed, it has become a revolution. Why is President Museveni trying to show people that if you disagree with my government, like I disagreed with Obote, you should also take this route? Why is it what I get? Or
They're still rebels until they succeed.
or like the rest are saying, is that, like Yusuf put it, that you either vote me or you vote me, because I can take another route. Yeah. But
I didn't say it that way.
No.
You said,
No,
said it
President
so
Museveni
well.
said it himself before.
You either
Oh,
vote me
of
or you
course.
vote me.
He said it about his contest with
that's
with
not what I said. You say,
It's a bit
but
funny you
what
said
I'm
it.
what I'm
I love the poetry, the way you put it.
and we have seen all these historicals tell us these things. He's talking about Kano Shaban Mantaiza, but we have had General Tumine. They all say they went to the bush, and they keep reminding us of that and liberated us. And me, I don't know, I'm not sure it was a liberation. It was someone disagreeing with the president and
With the government
thinking
that
with the
existed.
government that existed. So in the end, I think it's I've said here before, and you disagreed with me, that the president does things that are in his interests. I am approaching 2021. I have challengers. One of the challengers now is a musician, popular and charismatic. So I have this advantage that I can do this, which others cannot. So I can walk and interact with the people and so galvanize support in those places that people still have that feeling that he liberated us. That's what I think.
Moses.
Yes, we are talking about a trek that is happening in the Luwero Triangle. I've come to learn that the word Luwero Triangle was coined by Dr. Milton Obote, referring to the rebels of the time, that they are just in a triangle and he would crush them in a triangle. But what is important and standing out is that during the first walk, 1980-81, you had a rebel leader walking on his feet without a vehicle, without those protective gear and everything. And he was after a struggle to liberate the
no
country.
ambulances either.
And now, 34 years after liberating the country, after getting what you wanted, you walk back the same distance using armored vehicles, using all forms of screening. No one should come closer to you. And you're trying to tell the people that I'm still yours, I'm still the same, and here I am once again. You're walking on the same old torn roads, some that were even made worse by the war. Of course, there have been few recoveries. And you look at the risks they took in 1981 and the benefits that they claim to have gained. Move with 20 vehicles and beyond. And the question is, in 1981, when you took up arms, you had a target, which we referred to. You had a number of ideas and views in your head and in your planning groups. I attended to, one of these days, I think it was end of November. I attended the birthday party of General Kayanja, and there happened to be Colonel Fred Bogere as one of the key guests or guest speakers. You know, Colonel Bogere, he has always raised issues with the regime that he brought in power. But one of the questions, I mean, after narrating the stories, the risks that nearly claimed their lives, Colonel Bogere was like, okay, to you, Kayanja, my colleague, a brave, fierce fighter who liberated this country. Look around. Do we still live by the aspirations of the struggle? Those ideals for which we risked our lives, for which many of our comrades died in the bush, some of them we left them behind. Do we still live by them? When you look at Birengo...
What was Kayanja's answer, response to that?
Of course, he couldn't answer, not even an attempt. He simply said, that is a wrong lane. But looking at Birengo, where this 6-day walk is going to climax, it is so historical to the struggle that it nearly cost Museveni's life. He survived by an inch.
Some people say by a whisker. I don't know how to measure the whisker.
So, when you go, just take a private walk, individual walk to Birengo, you'll find that the only structure standing, the only beautiful structure, is that memorial site, or even, I think it's a grave for someone called Musi. You know?
And he has
And that's the only thing. In 34 years, there is a lot of damage that was done to the triangle. Someone was telling me that in 1980-81, at the time the war was starting, Luwero was at the verge of being an industrial city. Luwero produced their own milk in the different farms they were collecting milk, the powdered milk. In Kasana, today when you walk back to Kasana Luwero, I think the most beautiful structure you'll find is a bank now turned into DFCU, constructed in 2013.
But you also agree that Kasana Luwero has expanded as a town significantly.
But since when?
In the days.
Looking at the businesses that were happening in Kasana Luwero and Greater Luwero, you have different individuals owning up to 5 bus companies, different companies with different fleet of vehicles, with every individual boasting of their own fleet. 1980. You have people who had farms, private farms of cattle. They were eaten, and up to date, the Bazukulu, the ones you're telling that now the revolution is here, I'm the one who liberated you. Here I am. Their foundation to the middle class that you're promising today was eaten away by your own war, and to date they have not been compensated.
You have full figure representing those.
And the only compensation you will give full figure is less than 5 million in a brown envelope. I don't think full figure.
I think it's more. It's more than 5 million.
So, but going back to the fact of the matter on the work, I think today Museveni should be walking back to tell the country that, hey, what was a bush that we fought in, we burnt it down and we put up this. But he's walking back to the same old, rotten and worn down
in
roads.
99 he promised we should question. He promised schools, he promised schools, roads. So
in this work that is happening,
he had delivered universal primary education.
We are talking about where
he was delivering universal secondary education.
Charles, like Agatha is saying, Museveni in this work, he should be pointing at those vocational institutions that, hey, people, after fighting here, we put up a war memorial stadium. We put up
after changing your lives, after going to the bush to liberate you, I have made your lives better by doing this.
The only thing we'll talk about is immunization. You immunize me and leave me.
If you go and reel off statistics, this country has been growing at a phenomenal growth rate of 6% consistently for a period of more than 10 years. The economy is expected to rebound this year, but grow at 6.2%. Grow at 6.2%. Poverty has been reduced from 1986. It was 56%. Now it's in the lower 20s. Just went up a little bit, but it's being pushed back. You reel off numbers and statistics. The population in 1980 was 10, 12 million people. Now it's
That's
42 million
also
people.
Okay.
Yes, because the
Life
war
expectancy,
allowed people, life expectancy has grown. All these are factors. Yusuf, because we need to move on from here. No, but I think Yusuf raises something fundamental.
You mean Moses?
No, Moses raises something fundamental. As he walks back through these villages, I was speaking to a military officer the other day who told me he was sent ahead of time as to reconnoiter. During the Bush War, they had people who did reconnaissance. So they send them ahead to wreck and find out what's going on in the area, where the government soldiers, where to avoid, where to pass, who are contacts, where they are. Even for this trek, there's been reconnaissance done to work out the road. I don't know if the president will be able to avoid some of those ugly areas. Near here, just near here, where you find people have, the only thing they can sell around this season is baskets of mangoes. Mangoes, they're not tomatoes. Mangoes that have grown wild on their own, and then they have harvested them because there's a mango tree in the compound, and that's what they're selling. And on a lone village path where there are no buyers. So they put out 3 baskets of mangoes in the morning, they pick them up in the evening and take them back. I think I do them for their supper. But the question, the point that both Agatha and Moses are raising about, is there something to show, to say this was indeed a revolution? From Wakiso to Birembo.
First of all, I hope I don't think you guys think that Museveni is embarrassed by saying, oh, the ruins are still standing. I don't think it embarrasses him. I don't think it does. If it did, maybe he would never even think about the walk in the first place. All right?
Is it because it's not embarrassing, or because there's nothing that embarrasses Museveni?
Well, I don't know. You can take it either way.
Okay.
Nothing embarrasses him, maybe is better. But look, the Luwero should be taken as a microcosm of this entire country. The ruins that you see still standing in Luwero is not the exception. I mean, if we would do an audit of the entire country just by looking at Luwero, all right? So, I mean, the people in Soweto will tell you the same thing, how their cattle were all taken. I mean, in the north, the same story can be documented. So if you look at Luwero as a microcosm, they claim that there will be things that are standing because this was the epicenter of the revolution. It doesn't really make sense because the entire country is just looking the same. I mean, the stories you're telling about Luwero could be told in Busoga, for example, in Kamuli, where the Speaker of Parliament comes from. In Sorry, there's some stories the same. So the country is in that situation. But I want to answer the question they asked, whether there's a connection between the motivations for the walk in 1981 and now. And I wanted to say this. Historical events grow and their symbolism keeps changing.
And they evolve.
Historical narrativity is often a moment of power. We say in scholarship that history is not written to tell the story as it were in the past. History is written to respond to questions of the present, not respond to the questions of the past. Right now, we need to read the work as response to questions of now. It has no connection whatsoever with what happened in 1981. In fact, you know, I mean, we talk about the day when Uganda, Kampala was liberated. It's January 25. But we know what is documented is 26 because this a
but there was a political symbolism, you know, or conflict I wanted to avoid.
So this memory is being picked back in its past to respond to questions of now. Right now, we have an election coming. And we are re-narrating this war in the context of the election. And I think we need to see it in that way. And if we're doing that, we need to know, as Agatha put it quite poetically, you either vote me or you vote me. And as these surrogates have been speaking, we'll use power. These people are talking about power. We're talking gunpowder. And so we show you the work to respond and put all these other things in context. There's another better way to think about this.
Gentlemen and lady, I think we need to move on. And also related to that historical context, related to this trek, you have another kind of trek of someone who was part of this 1981 to 1986, but serving mostly in the external wing. And then, after serving as a very senior person called Super Minister some stage, has a disagreement with President Museveni and walks out and challenges President Museveni for the presidency.
Not just that. Challenges his victory.
No, challenges President Museveni in that election, in just the last election, 2016. Somehow he disappears off the radar. Now we see him reemerge the other day at a meeting with the president. People have been throwing jokes about him carrying a brown envelope, which is common with people who carry.
It was so thin.
No. It's application letters.
Okay.
CV and application letter. I think it was a different meeting.
What if it had a check?
John Patrick.
Maybe a bank overdraft, not a check.
John Patrick Amama Mbabazi. Now let's just lay down the facts from what we're hearing. State House just released the images of that meeting. The president, John Patrick Amama Mbabazi. Behind them you have the new PPS, Dr. Mona, and one of the secretaries to the president, Irene Birungi. Then you see the president and Mr. Mbabazi working together to inspect, to see the cows, which is one of President Museveni's most endearing things that he wants to show to all his visitors. What exactly did JPAM go to meet Museveni over? What did they discuss? What does this mean in the context you're talking about? The 2021 election happening now. Yusuf.
We can only speculate on what the discussion was about, right? We cannot know, and considering the amount of secrecy in this country, everything is often in private. We will never know what exactly transpired. But that the meeting was made public is in itself a fascinating story, right? JPAM is a powerhouse in his own way, and now that he's seeming to be, he was in the intelligence wing of the NRA, as we're told. So now being a powerhouse in his own way, and now starting to reconnect with the NRM, I think that's fascinating, and I think that is why we came to
his critics within the NRM wouldn't say he's a powerhouse, given the electoral humiliation he got in just 4 years ago.
No, that not in the NRM. Wouldn't agree.
Wouldn't agree that he was a power.
That would be politics. But in the context of the election, you need to see the signals that it sends. The signals that sends to the opposition are very clear. That it looks like the machinery is starting to reorganize itself. All right, but also it shows. It's also significantly symbolically shows that Museveni still has his old guys starting to work with him. So the opposition is being reminded that if you suspect in one time that I'm getting weaker, I'm actually getting stronger, because the addition of Mama doesn't make Museveni weaker, it actually makes him stronger. And I mean strong in the sense, not that he then will have a bigger electoral...
His subtraction didn't make him weaker, if you're talking about his addition.
No, but still, if it didn't make him weaker, the addition doesn't make him any weaker.
Yes, because the question some people would raise would be, when JPAM decided to walk away from Museveni, what did he or who did he walk away with?
No.
When he comes back, who does he come back with? But there people will tell you, I spoke to somebody within government and said, we were taken by surprise by this, but we have been hearing rumors that they kept in contact.
Sure.
When JPAM married off his daughter to the son of the South African president, President Museveni was part of the guests to that wedding, and he kind of reassembled the comrades he was with in the government. They have not had a bad relationship, even when they disagreed. So for him to be meeting with him is, what kind of deal can JPAM cut? And I need to put caution to this, because one of the things we're hearing is that actually he went for a completely unrelated matter, which is his advisory position on a foundation called the Brazzaville Foundation, which advocates for end of conflict, it advocates for better health and other things, with a global board. It's an organization based out in London, but created after meeting, I think in 1990 in Congo, Brazzaville, to advocate for that. So we don't need to lose that context, but the reading, the commentary has been about the politics of it, not that other charitable work that JPAM might be involved in.
You know that one of the reasons General Muntu was branded the more and still is in the opposition is because he kept contact with not just the president, the people they were with that remained in government, and he had always told them, I disagree with you, that disagreements politically should mean enmity. And the point I want to make is that I don't think it should be strange I have seen politics in other countries, like in the US. President Obama ran with McCain. When McCain died, I think he gave the best speech, the most moving speech. The problem is that in this country, and we have talked about the mistrust before here, that the picture that the President Museveni has created of I am the Alpha and Omega here. Challenge me and you will be in trouble. Be in good books with me and you will be good. So that makes people think that JPAM has been out in the cold for the last how many years? Since 2015, since 2014 when he was dropped as Prime Minister, has been in the cold and suffering, and his wife was sick at some point and begging for money. We've had those rumors, and it will make people think that he has gone back to the lost sheep that returns. I should, but like we are saying, that's speculation. But we are just putting into context all these things that have been happening. But ordinarily, I think it shouldn't be. Everyone should aspire to meet the head of the state over any national or even individual issues.
The significance of the timing of the meeting, 31st December, and the release of those images, the symbolism of it. If, for example, President Museveni had gone to check on Jackie Mbabazi, JPAM's wife, at his home, you were sick for some time, you're treated, you have recovered, we're all comrades, and like someone told me, my brother, these are brothers. These have been brothers for a long time, so they can meet and they've kept interacting. If it was President Museveni who drove to Nyonyi Gardens, to Kololo, to meet to JPAM's home and say, I've come to check on you. He's done this. He went to visit Milton Obote's, the late Milton Obote's wife, Miria Obote, sometime back. He's going to meet the Kabaka, and there's a difference between where the meeting happens, who controls the narrative.
We should say,
what does this mean for JPAM if he has a political future, maybe within the movement or outside of the movement? What does this say for him? What does it mean for him?
I think,
no matter the reason he went to visit.
We should add that, and this is a real life example, like those you've cited. The president drove to Mbabazi's home to attend the Kohinjira. So what political connections did it have? I think the president has deliberately reached out to people who are seemingly in disagreement with him. As a matter of fact, I know that on several occasions, before winning General Tumukunde back, he tried to reach him out on several occasions, although General Tumukunde had declined and later on accepted. Museveni is standing as a father and a giver. So leaving the political lines aside, he has always known how to play his cards for whatever game, whether politics, whether business, or anything. I was speaking to Moses Ruhanga. He's a senior presidential advisor on political affairs. And he told me, no, you people, you shouldn't be surprised by this meeting. Because first of all, it should show you that the president always forgives. The president does not keep
what is that, forgives? The person just runs.
He's always a welcoming father. And from Agatha's line, I don't know whether he has read the quote. I mean, she has read the quote. I doubt not. Biaruhanga says that this is a lost sheep. So, as a true shepherd, the president always looks for the lost sheep.
The 100 sheep.
Yes, to bring them back and keep his flock together. So, that is the presidential advisor saying. I talked to Honorable Ruth Nankabira, and she said, I'm not surprised. I've always expected Mbabazi to come back. First of all, he has never declared that he's not NRM. The media has always provoked him to state, are you still together? And he's like, I'm NRM, I have been NRM. This is the part I helped to form. I cannot turn against it. So if they are meeting, whether they're discussing politics or not, they are friends and they have never parted ways.
We need to take a break at this point. When we come back, we'll go international and discuss the escalation in the Middle East after the United States President Donald Trump ordered that hit on one of the highest ranking officials within the Iranian military, in Iraq and the killing of Suleiman. We'll discuss that after a short break. But many people are saying 1-0 for President versus JPAM because he won't be able to walk back to the opposition and say, I still disagree with President Museveni because of the symbolism and the way these images were played out, how the information flow was managed over this meeting.
Those people should learn that in politics, you can never have permanent enemies or permanent friends. And these guys have been friends.
They have never
so
said
long.
they were enemies.
Yes.
I think we need to emphasize that. Let's take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue with the discussion. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This last segment of the Fourth Estate. And just before we go international, let's just track back a little. We're receiving information that we did receive information earlier that the People Power Group of Robert Senta Muchagulanyi they secured, they communicated the intention to do nationwide consultations because Bobi Wine has now declared he wants to run against President Museveni in 2021 and needed to do nationwide consultations. So he wrote officially to the Electoral Commission to seek permission. The Electoral Commission wrote back and agreed with him, okayed his consultations. He's communicated the same to Parliament, but we're hearing that his team, him and his team, are being denied access to use of hotels in some parts of the country. I don't know, we don't have much information at the moment. Joe's been communicating their challenges. Agatha, what do we know?
What we know is that Joe says they followed the law and wrote to the police, and the police has given them a clear as of now.
Mm-hmm.
The only, I think, issue that he's complaining of is that he's alleging that security operatives are threatening the owners of the venues they had booked, and they have called them to withdraw their consent and say, come take your money, we are not hosting you. But so he says they are now looking for other venues.
Does that affect the planned meetings? Does it affect the accommodation in some of these towns?
No,
and do we have any specifics?
Hotels, specific hotels. No, I didn't ask about specific hotels, but he says they are making arrangements so that by the time their planned meetings happen, they have alternative venues for their meetings. On police, they say they have not. It's just the fear expected. JPAM, we were talking about JPAM earlier. When JPAM was going to start his consultations, he wrote to the police, but he was blocked and arrested. How many times? Maybe a couple of times. Dr. Besiji, always. But so I think it's just a fear that they have because
there is a history to this. Dr. Kizza Besigye has had bigger troubles, especially with appearing on local radio stations, and including the national broadcaster, Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. He took them to court and won that case, where he had booked a talk show, paid for it, but he was prevented from having the show. In Lira, I think, he's gone to a radio station and owned by former Moroto District RDC, Nahaman Ojwe, who walked in apparently in his pajamas and switched off the generator. Switched off the generator when Besigye was on air. And we've had these stories of him, I think, being blocked in Jinja more recently. So it's a very, very risky discussion to have, because is people power doing this as a movement to gain sympathy, or are private business owners actually, is security working behind the scenes to get private business owners to disown them?
It could be true that security operatives are working behind the scenes. And you know, most of these hotel owners are like any other citizen or any other Ugandan who is after what they used to say, emere ya lero. Mere ya lero is, everyone is after at least
Daily bread.
daily
Food.
So they're like, okay, I might host you, and then I don't get business anymore. They might outlaw my business. They might say there are bombs here or anything.
They unleash the Uganda Revenue Authority on you. They audit you for the last 5 years and give you a bill you
they
can't
must
pay.
be really quite scared, the hotel owners. But again, the people power must brace themselves for such developments and many others that are yet to happen. A colleague of mine, we had a chat and told me that, you know, I was talking to a security operative who told me that 2021 is not a piece of a samosa. It's not going to be as easy as everyone thinks. And that was a security operative for every Ugandan. So they are telling us to be, vigilant on security aspects. We must also be vigilant on other political developments. Okay. So people power must have their plan B always in mind, that once Hotel A denies us or withdraws their consent, because now the hotels are sober enough, they know the moment they withdraw the consent, they are going to face litigation. They have to pay and what. So they say, no, we are withdrawing, get your money back. So you must have plan B, plan C, up to D. That is if you are ready to play the politics in the mud waters of Uganda's politics.
Yusuf, what's your take? Is it a wild speculation that as a political movement they could use this to gain sympathy and say, you know, we've been blocked, so we couldn't host our event here, or have our people accommodated in these and these spaces?
I mean, there are three issues here. First of all, I'm not sure if media has been able to tell us the story of Pacific Hotel in Arua after what happened in 2018, 17. The Arua
2018.
I'm not sure the story of Pacific Hotel has been told after, a year after. I was in Arua not too long ago. I was twice in Arua not too long ago. But Pacific Hotel is not one of their darling hotels anymore. If you say I'm going to Pacific Hotel, they tell you, oh no, you can't go there. I've met on both occasions. I've met with Ambassador Harold Achema, who is a columnist with Daily Monitor, and I was asking for a place to eat. He said, oh, the Pacific Hotel, they cook good food, but yeah, you may not want to go there because of the politics that's to the place. So Arua, in context of hotels, Pacific Hotels provides the benchmark for us to think about these hotels. All right, hoteliers are not really fascinated about the story of Pacific Hotel, that they'll be willing to host another of those seemingly contentious political contenders. They will not be really very enthusiastic to do so because of the story of Pacific Hotel. And I don't think media has been good enough to help us tell the story after in terms of business.
So what's your own context? You say you were in Arua and people are telling you, yes, they cook good food, but...
Yeah, but it looks like the business is
have
died.
They lost
They've lost
business?
Plenty of business because of what happened in 2018. So no other hotelier who has an awareness of this will be willing to host Bobby Wine, irrespective of the money that they're going to come. Because if you lose money for a full year, I mean, you never know when you're going to recover your money.
There's something I'm not understanding, Yusuf. Are you saying because people are staying away and saying this place hosted these people and has had consequences, so government is not doing business there?
So Pacific Hotel,
or individuals, because now out of sympathy you'd say, these guys suffered because they hosted someone, I agree with, they hosted the people power people, Bobby Wine and the others, so you go to them to support them. If you believe,
look,
or if the alternative in these other places, I think the story that we always told is, if I host you on my radio station, if I host you in my hotel, then government is going to come hard on me, and if it comes hard on me, I will suffer losses. So people might want to go there just to support.
No, part A. Let's first get this. You don't want to host one of Uganda's current opposition contenders at your hotel because you don't know what would happen. There's uncertainty. The owners of Pacific Hotel never suspected at any one time it could get as bad as it got. So, because Bob Wine carries himself, you have to be, how does Kansime put it? You're such a risk taker to host Bob Wine under the circumstances because of the Pacific Hotel. That's one way to think about it. The second way to think about it is that I know a man who has 2 signatures, right? And think about the police. I know a man who has 2 signatures. If you go to him as a CEO, if you go to him to ask for money, he'll say, oh, you want money? You can have it. So he gives you a signature, which tells the cashier, actually give this person money. But also when he doesn't, he'll say, you can actually go get the money. But the signature he puts on paper is telling the cashier, please don't. So the cashier will say, oh, okay, he's giving you money, but we don't have the funds. All right? So police could have given Bob Wine the signature for money. But the reader of the signature, who is the hoteliers and all those who are willing to host him during the consultations, will be like, the signature that I'm reading doesn't say you're actually going to be hosted peacefully. So we can't host you, right? So the signatures have to be read really well. Now, the third point, which I think is my biggest disagreement with all opposition contenders, it have to be a public announcement. The danger is in the public announcement.
Oh, by who?
By the people power to say we're going to have these consultations. It didn't have to be a public announcement. Because what did you expect from a public announcement? What did you expect when you went ahead and said we're applying to the Electoral Commission, to police? What did you expect?
You're playing by the rules.
But by law,
that's the usual things. That's the usual thing. Every time you apply, they may say yes, but it will not go down well. Most times they say no. Now they're saying no in a different by giving you a signature, which actually speaks different language.
Quiet or silent consultation.
If you are a serious player in the present political dispensation, you get out of the press in the first place. You get out of the media. This is like, it's a thing for me that I know if you go to DR Congo, La Lucha, the biggest opposition groups that mobilized against President Kabila's standing again, they didn't work within the press. They organized privately and quietly. Besides, what are they consulting for?
The booking on the hotels is private, isn't it?
Well, it's a private thing, but I've told you about the 2 checks, the 2 signatures. Police give you a signature which is readable as go ahead. But the reader
gave you a text which says go ahead, but the signature.
But the language cryptically could only be read by the hotelier to say what I'm reading doesn't say you can actually have it. Although in the public domain it looks like that, but what I'm reading tells me you can't have it.
So you politely tell people we are
sorry, can't host you, we can't do this, because they're reading the text that you failed to read from the police and the Electoral Commission. But that's the point. Why did you have to make it a public announcement? Because the public announcement makes you to do the easy things, right? The easy thing, the conventional things of playing politics. Because first they expect to be blocked from actually going to consult. So when they are blocked, they'll come to us crying, hey, you see this government is very oppressive. Of course it is oppressive, and everybody knows that. You're not giving us news.
Can I ask you
a
question?
So on that context, if you want to mobilize serious as an activist, you do it quietly.
So the story would be different if you, as you're suggesting that if they booked and paid for the hotels, and then arrive at the venues, and then Bobby arrives and says, wait a minute, who actually did this booking? Hold on a minute, we can't host you.
So first of all,
that would be different context.
Look, now you're actually far away from what I'm saying. They didn't even have to, why do they have to go to hotels? Tell them to go to people's homes. Why do they have to go to hotels?
For accommodation.
The entire idea of making a public announcement of your mobilization is flawed. There was no reason whatsoever to say,
how do you place that in context with
look, the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, they mobilized for the entire time before the house came down. They never asked for police support because they were blocked. They never
put this in context. How does this speak to Mugisha Muntu, for example? She spoke about him, who's been doing nationwide consultations, and he's having them in hotels, in public spaces, with his
because Mugisha Muntu is a portion of the future.
Mugisha
Muntu is a portion of the future. They know from the very beginning that Mugisha Muntu is not interested in responding to the questions of our present. Mugisha Muntu represents the future, and we are happy with him to continue. So what are you saying?
I thought you're happy with Mugisha Muntu, who doesn't make it a public announcement?
Because the state knows that he can go ahead and have whatever he wants because he's a portion of the future.
Really?
Not the present.
But interesting, especially when you're talking about, we started this discussion, this show tonight with the trek, the 400-kilometer trek, remembering the journey between 1981 to 1986 that brought this government to power. I thought when Mugisha Muntu was walking out of Makerere University after his last examination to join the bush, he was preparing himself to be a politician of the future. 34 years down the road, 30 for him, because that was 1982.
38 now.
38 years down the road, he's still a politician of the future. The future for Mugisha Muntu is still ahead.
Also, let me speak, because I have not understood Yusuf one bit. you have a law, 2 laws that require you to seek permission to have these agencies. I mean, to have these consultation meetings. And from what you're saying is that because he's facing threats of being blocked from the same agencies, it's as if you're saying he should not have even notified police, which would be illegal, and go and start walking from people's homes door to door. And you think police wouldn't find out that she's doing that
exactly.
or what?
So the hypocrisy of this entire thing of announcing is that you know how police is going to respond. Because there's a history of its response. You know it. So why do you do it in the first place?
So if you're trying to just be political, you do exactly this. So President Museveni, President Museveni knew he was going to be laughed out of town by his anti-corruption work.
Yeah.
He went ahead with it to generate discussion that centers around him. He knows that people are going to be comparing his current trick with the promises of the revolution between the Bush War between 1981 to 1986. He goes ahead with it because he knows it gives him publicity. So if Bobby Wine is reading from the same script and says, I'll go through the formal way, I'll get the formal approvals, the reading between the lines on what signature has been applied, which I agree with you, keeps this discussion, my name and my movement in the media. He's achieving exactly that.
Yeah,
Getting blocked, actually for me, if this story was breaking, not by saying we are being told we are receiving cancellations, but Bobby Wine arriving in Ginger and being turned away from the hotel because he's Bobby Wine who has arrived. And he says, look, we booked here, we paid, we had reservations. Now we have arrived and they're telling us we don't have any reservation. It would make bigger news play. So on that front, I think but they have not been smart enough.
I hope he's reading the Museveni script, because the Museveni script is not one dimensional.
But Charles,
Museveni will do the thing that will give him coverage. All right? However idiotic it could be, he will do it because it will give him coverage. Museveni, most of his politics is clandestine. The things that where power is determined, the game of winning and taking the next election, is not in the public domain. So I hope they are doing both. All right? I hope they are doing both. Because if we are only stuck in the publicity thing and we're being really covered in the media, I think you're doing what everybody does. But there must be serious movements underground.
Okay.
Charles started by asking you a question that do you think this is a political stunt that they are pulling off? But he is the one who had told us a story of the man who came in pajamas to switch off the radio station. So we know very many things in the past, with especially Dr. SG, have shown us that the police is capable of doing that. Why are we...
The police or security?
But it's the police that is mandated to...
No, there are many actors. We know that there are many actors from various security agencies. The people who run our election cycles, who determine whether someone can do a meeting in some place or not, is never sometimes... The police comes in at some stage.
The law gives the police the power to allow you to host this meeting. And this is at their discretion. They can say for security reasons, and security reasons you will never understand.
I'm sorry, but I think you're wrong in your interpretation of the law. The law doesn't give police power to permit or not permit. That's why Bobby Wine wrote to the Electoral Commission to notify them, I'm going to do these consultations, this is my schedule.
Section 5 of POMA. Section 5,
Section
which gives the IGP, which talks about the powers of the IGP. Look at Section 6 that talks about the notice. I mean, 5 is the one that talks about the notice. Look at 6 that says where notice cannot be, where permission cannot be granted.
So there are powers.
And so there are powers. And for me, my problem is that you have things that are not explained, that give them a wide discretionary powers of saying, no, you can't host it here because you will disturb the peace. You cannot host it here because, or you cannot host it today. You understand?
There's the fundamental difference between the wording of the law, of the Public Order Management Act, and its interpretation and application. The wording is you give notification. Yes, you give notification, not seek permission. Now, the police can advise and say, you can't do it now, you can't do it here, you can't do it. That is still the gray area. But gentlemen and lady, I am keen for us to move on, and we have only about 7 minutes to get out of here.
Just a quick one, actually.
Yeah.
Moses didn't talk on that issue.
Oh,
I only wanted to talk about his strategy of residing in people's homes.
Yeah.
FDC tried to use it in 2005. That's after its formation in 2004. They tried to go put up offices in different regions, mobilize from people's homes. And the people they mobilized were picked as rebels later on by state agencies. So I think it would be a wrong move to come and sleep at my home.
I am not a politician. I don't think what I've said is foolproof. But here's the thing I'm saying. You know, we have this debate where people keep claiming there's shrinking political space in this country. No.
But shrinking?
There's plenty of political space in this country. You need to find the strategies for really exploiting it. If you're living under an authoritarian government, know that that's the space you have. That's what it is. Because you can't tell me in one sentence, President Museveni's regime is authoritarian, and then you're crying they're shrinking political space. Of course, that's what it is. So there's space that you need to find strategies of exploiting the space that exists under an authoritarian government.
And the
But you know,
I don't know them.
You know what you're saying. You know what you're saying if you come to think of it in context. Like President Museveni, in December 1980, you know there was an election on 10th December 1980, and President Museveni lost it miserably, and then used the justification of that election to say he was going to challenge because it had been a rigged election. So in 1980, December 14th or 15th, President Museveni writes and says, you know, I am seeking permission. I'm informing you that we'll be starting our work on January
with 27 guns.
Exactly. So we need to seek permission to start the work
in February. In February, we're going to begin a journey into Luero Triangle. We'll have a meeting. We'll have a meeting at Matthew Chikaira's house in Machin.
And then we'll start a war against your government. That'd be crazy.
But Bob Wine, the difference here is that Bob Wine doesn't want to start a war. Bob Wine wants to sell himself to Ugandans to be voted, and that's what I started by saying.
No, you see, the difference is Bobby Wine, Kiza Besigye, Mugisha Muntu, Norbert Mao, everyone else who has spoken about the government have said, you know, there is no space for us to operate. We need to get this country back to the democratic path, because Museveni used that claim of bringing democracy to just entrench himself in power.
So you guys
so
are saying
we need to challenge that. And then there is a set of laws, you know, like we have a constitution of 1995. There was a constitution in 1980 under which those elections were held.
The 1967 constitution.
Yes, there was the Police Act, there was the Penal Code Act, there were the whole series of laws were active then. The question is, they wouldn't function for the people who wanted them to function. So we need to move on.
Find space. You have to find space, because there's a space. You're just not finding it.
And the reason,
there's plenty of space.
Someone would again say the reason
a justice of the Court of Appeal has ever told me, when Museveni wanted to oust the government, he mobilized against it. When he disagreed with the government, he mobilized against it. But what type of message are you guys sending to
it's interesting. This is the interesting thing. When somebody wanted to oust the government, he mobilized.
Yes.
Now, our politicians, they want to oust it, they ask for permission.
He was talking about their poor mobilization. Said they think putting on red hats and going that hooliganism is the one that will remove a government.
But it's working for them. Otherwise, the state wouldn't be on its knees.
I did promise our viewers that we'll have a brief discussion about President Donald Trump, in many interpretations, has set the Middle East alight by ordering that strike against Suleiman Qasem, a high-ranking official in the Iranian government, because the United States says it's Iran that is sponsoring the demonstrations in Iraq against the regime in Baghdad, which is an attack against the Americans, because these demonstrations have been against targeting the American embassy. You saw people trying to break into the embassy. And I think yesterday or the other day, the U.S. State Department ordered all American citizens in Iraq to exit and go back home. And the justification has been that Suleiman was planning an attack on the Americans there. The Ugandans who are working as security guards within the embassy, they've been trapped in there, but they're part of the American force, so they need to be evacuated together with the others. Trump is facing an election. So like you're Museveni walking, Yes, like Yoweri Museveni walking ahead of the 2021 election, an election next January, February. Trump also has a tough election coming up.
Yeah.
He's also facing
Impeachment.
an impeachment, which now is supposed to be headed to the Senate. And I think it was Moses who was sharing earlier that collection of tweets he outed against Barack Obama. Could you run through some of them, Moses, quickly, before we launch into this discussion? We have only about 3 minutes to get out of here, so I'll ask you guys to give very, very brief answers.
Well, most of these tweets, I think, they are a direct contradiction of the Trump of those days and the Trump of today.
The Trump in opposition and the Trump in power.
Yes, there's one that says that don't let Obama play the Iran card in order to start a war to get elected.
That was tweeted
Republicans
on 22nd October 2012.
Yes, yes. So there's a contradicting one that says, remember that I predicted on a long time ago that President Obama will attack Iran because of his inability to negotiate properly. Not skilled.
That was 2013.
13.
Yes.
There's another
September.
one that was saying, in order to get elected, Barack Obama will start a war in with Iran. I always said Barack Obama will attack Iran in some form prior to the election.
That
so
was August. August 16, 2012.
Not six. Yes, yes. August 16th. Then the second last one. Remember that I previously said Obama will someday attack Iran in order to show how tough he is.
So what you're trying to say with this is that
so
he's using the same strategy.
He's basically speaking it out by his actions. Now, the last one is, in order to get elected, Barack Obama will start a war with Iran. So perhaps
that was
Trump,
2011.
Yes. Perhaps Trump is saying that, guys, my electors, I have to fight this war. I'm here for you, and we must stand against Iran.
No, his interpretation of U.S. foreign policy and Obama
is what
in
he's trying to
2012 was to read it from a selfish electoral lenses. Is that what he's saying?
Yes. That Obama would do these things for selfish political gains. But now, you see that the critic.
Yusuf, I'm being told that we have we need to get out of here. Time is out.
What is fascinating for me is the way the American press is covering the story. Not just American press, but the Western press is covering the story. I'm suspicious it might backfire because, you know, most American press, they're not really defending Soleimani's record, but they're questioning the evidence upon which the execution was carried out. And they're saying there was zero evidence. I think they're taking lessons from Iraq and Afghanistan, and they say we're led into a war on false intelligence, and now we're being led into one because of an election. So, you know, like as we've been watching international press, the story is that the imminent threat to American citizens is a false narrative. So it might actually backfire because even in the American press, it's being said over and over again that we're being taken for a ride and led into another war because of an election. So while it worked for Bush in 2000, in the 2000s, it might not really work for Donald Trump, because of the way it's being covered in the American press.
But in 2020, but you have the press has moved away from the impeachment.
Exactly. But what I wanted to say, while we might look at it as his diversionary tactic to divert them from impeachment and maybe get mileage for the next election, for me it portrays the Trump as we've known him. You know, I have read Bob Woodward's book called Fear. Bob Woodward was a journalist with the Washington Post, and he starts his book with the letter that President Trump wrote to South Korea. There's an agreement of U.S.-Korea trade agreement that Trump was terminating, and all the officials in the Oval House kept hiding it so that he doesn't send it out, because they were looking at him. I think Kwon was then saying, we have to protect, and Steve Bannon, we have to protect this country from this madman. Like, they always saw him as an irrational guy, and said it's our duty in this office. They kept hiding that letter because of the implications they thought it would have on Iraq. I mean on the US. Now, we all know that this whole Iran issue started with him withdrawing from the nuclear pact in 2018. So
the one that Obama had negotiated.
yes, so you look at it and see still the Trump that has been described as irrational. We might not know if that is true because there have been those allegations of CNN and the news, but well, I think it's still the same Trump that might not even have thought about a re-election.
Our time is out. I'm being told that we're actually overshooting our time. We need to get out of here. I just seen a copy of a letter from the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development that assures Ugandans that we have about 700 Ugandans working security guard jobs in Baghdad. And they're saying they are safe. They are safe. The entire contingent is not involved in any combat operations because the security guards normally work in the rear line of security. It's the Americans that are on the front.
Are we ever told when they are unsafe?
Pardon?
Are we ever told when they are unsafe?
Well, assurances are important. So they're saying the way we're covering it as media, that talking about fatalities and injuries are not true. Thank you very much, Yusuf Serum Kuma, columnist with the Observer newspaper and scholar, academic scholar. Thank you very much for making time for the show tonight. Thank you very much, Moses Cheyune, journalist with the Daily Monitor, reporting at Parliament, based at Parliament. And thank you very much, Agatha Atoire, who's an independent journalist and a lawyer. Thank you very much to you all our viewers. And like I said at the beginning, a very happy new year to you and wish you all the best in the year 2020. For me, it's a good night.